We are in biology, chapter 17, section 2, and we're going into the anatomy and the physiology of birds. And we got to the digestive system. We went over to the different kinds of bills, how important it is that the bird has that kind of bill into what kind of food that they're going to eat. And all of them, from a slicing fruit all the way to catching fish and to sucking up nectar, all these things in all the different kind of birds. But now we need to talk a little bit about the digestive system, which is different, a little different from our digestive system. For one thing, the bird lacks teeth, right? No teeth. So that keeps them light because teeth are pretty heavy. And so they don't need teeth, and they use their bills, and their bills made lightweight, but they use their bills especially for those things that they eat, those whether it be insects or seeds. And they have very few taste buds, and they do not have salivary glands like we do. Only I think they have one kind of gland for some starch digestion, but very few salivary glands in their mouth. And so going on from their mouth, they go down, they have a short pharynx, up here for their mouth, and a long esophagus. See how long their esophagus comes down here. We're talking about this here, long esophagus. This is their skeleton, and this is their esophagus. And it goes down into their crop. We don't have this thing here. It's called a crop. So what is a crop? A crop is the storage chamber in their esophagus that releases at a proper rate of digestion. So they have to have this crop to digest. But basically, they store things there to digest it. Because if they didn't have this right here, this would all go down into their stomach, and they would definitely have a stomach ache. I'm saying that it would not fit in their stomach all at once, especially when they're eating big insects and such. So that storage chamber releases food at a proper rate to go down into their stomach. And their stomach down here, let's see, down here, right here's the stomach, pointing here. It actually has two chambers. So 2 chambers in the stomach, and first chamber puts forth the gastric juices, and the second, the stomach is called the gizzard. And the gizzard is here. So here's the first part of the stomach. See the stomach right here, this purple part? And then right down here, this bigger thing is called the gizzard. Have you ever had a turkey and said, I don't want to eat the gizzard? I don't know if you've ever said that, but maybe like, oh, do you want to eat the gizzard? Well, the gizzard is the stomach. It's a very muscular has horny little plates in it, and it grinds up the food in the gut like teeth. So they swallow grit in there, and the gizzard is what grinds up all of their food. So just remember there. So let's back up. Food goes from the pharynx, from the mouth, the bill, down the esophagus, and is held in the crop, and gradually comes out here to the first part of the stomach and down into the gizzard, which is the second part of the stomach, to grind the food. Then it goes into the intestines. And this is where the nutrients are absorbed, and they have bile and pancreatic right down here in the intestines here. Not as many intestines as we have, that's for sure. But here's the intestines down here. And this is where the food is absorbed, and then added pancreatic juices to further break down their food. And then we go on to the cloaca. The cloaca down here is basically where they do the elimination process. Their waste products come out. Also, in the cloaca, they hold their sperm, and their eggs are held down here in this cloaca, right? And then the kidneys, we go to the kidneys. The kidneys are right here. They have these small kidneys, 2 of them, and the kidneys dump into the area of the intestines there, into their intestines to be eliminated. But also they have a special organ. So here's the intestines. I guess they don't have a special organ on here, but it's called the bursa of Fabricus. And what it is, it's close to the cloaca, or cloaca, down here. And it puts in the immune lymphocytes, like B cells, into the bird. It's called the bursa of Fabricus. And it's down towards the cloaca where the lemon is. It's a special organ that we don't have. Just remember, bursa of Fabricus is in the cloaca, and it's puts in immune system so that they have a pretty good immune system and can fight against disease. Okay? Let's see if we go on to the next section on the excretory system. That's the respiratory system, so I don't really present the excretory system here very well, I don't think. So let's go back to this picture. We're going to talk really quick about the excretory. That has to do with the kidneys too. So the excretory system has a high efficiency. Birds concentrate their urine, and their urine is a very, very concentrated. And so they don't really have like urea like we have, or urine. They have basically uric acid. And they have little water to be eliminated. And the mammal loses like 60 times the amount of water as a bird does. So they drink, birds drink pretty little. They don't drink a lot. So, and their urine turns into this 3,000 times more concentrated than our urine. And it turns into this white paste that you see them look, and it looks like bird poop, you know, when a white paste comes out, you know, that's what they call, you know, bird waste, I should say that. But this white paste is more concentrated, really concentrated. That's the bird urine being concentrated into this white paste. The bird also has up towards, it's basically beneath its eye right here. You don't have a picture of that, but they have some marine birds, only birds that are marine, that are by salt water. And they have this gland, and this is above each eye, right up here, above their eye. And they takes the salt, it's above each eye, and it takes the salt out, and the salt comes out of the seawater, and it comes down and runs through their nostrils and nose and runs out the sides, and it secretes the excess salt. Because if they drank all this salt water, they would get dehydrated and die. We can't drink salt water, and they can't either. But when they do drink salt water, they have this gland that eliminates the salt. Isn't that? Actually, by their eye of all places. I never knew about this, but by their eye, they have this salt gland that takes the salt off so they can drink the water. Whew, that is quite a deal. So now I want to go into the respiratory. We'll go through the respiratory and physiology. The respiratory of the bird is way more complicated than our respiration. Let's just say that. It's totally different than any other animal. So let's back up so you can see the whole respiratory system. There we go. I'll move it around. So the air that it breathes doesn't go as directly into the lungs, but it goes beyond the lungs. It goes through the lungs. So there's actually 4 steps here. Let's go over the 4 steps. Pretty important. So here's a picture of the respiratory system. And we start in step 1. So what does step 1 basically, as the bird, basically the fresh air is inhaled in here. And as the fresh air is inhaled, it passes through, see how it's passing through the lungs, down into here. Where is it going? It's going into these air sacs behind the lungs. These air sacs make the bird really light so the bird can fly. So here we go. The air goes through here, down to the air sacs. And then as it exhales, the fresh air comes up through the lungs. Now it's going through the lungs here. It's exhaling and flows forward through these lungs. And where oxygen and carbon dioxide is done, that's what's happening in the lungs. They're taking in the oxygen and giving out the carbon dioxide. And then it's going through, and that goes up to some more air sacs up here. So they have air sacs in front. The stale air moves into the more air sacs in the front. So they have air sacs in the front of them and air sacs in the back of them. So it's like a balloon where they can float when they're flying, right? Kind of like that. So then the bird inhales and it exhales 2 times to move each breath. So they have 2 breaths. Instead of 1 breath, 2 breaths. And it flows up here as we go. Okay, let's go over for, comes in here as it inhales, goes all the way through, fills up the air sacs, and then it comes in from the air sacs and goes through the lungs, and then it goes up to these air sacs, and then the carbon dioxide and the stale air comes out and goes out through, through the mouth and through the beak there. So, quite a deal. So, whoa, sorry. And so the bird, just remember, it inhales and exhales 2 times to remove each breath. They need all that air inside, that's why. So just think 2 times, 2 breaths as they're moving, and they flow in the same direction, and they exhale and inhale. So, whew. So the lungs do not contract and expand like we do with a diaphragm. They get more oxygen from the air, especially when they're flying. And when they need this oxygen, because when they fly higher, they can lose consciousness. When we would fly as high as some of these birds, we would probably faint, right? Or we would lose consciousness, because some of them fly pretty high. One even 29,000 or some feet. That's quite a deal. So, and then also the air sacs, these air sacs that they have here, will cool them and be cooling to their body systems. And the air tubes go into their hollow bones too. So basically the air sacs, and as they go into their hollow bones, they even have air in their bones. And the air flows in and out of their skeleton. Since they have no sweat glands at all, they have to be cooled off through all the air in their respiratory system. So what a unique respiratory system. So let's look. We saw this. Let's look at the bird here. So here the air is going down its trachea and got down into its air sacs, going down first down to through the lung, air sacs into the lung, and then air sacs down here. These are all air sacs. And then as it comes back up here, it goes into more air sacs here. And then there's this right here. This is pretty important right here. What is that thing? It's called a syrinx. A syrinx is the voice box. So the bird has a syrinx, and it's at the lower end of the trachea. So here's the trachea coming down here, and here's the syrinx. And so it has 2 areas of it, because there's 2 bronchus that go to the lungs, 2 lungs, and it vibrates. It's kind of like our voice box, but it's in a different place, huh? And it actually has 2 unrelated tones that are harmonious. So basically, a bird can make 2 different tones at once because of this syrinx, this voice box. In fact, a wood thrush does make 2 independent, and as it chirps 2 different, you think it's 2 different birds, but it's not. So this is the syrinx, which is the voice box. And here's down here going into the 2 different bronchus to the lung, right? To the 2 lungs. So let's go on here. Unique. I'm going to go over that in the next section. It talks about all the different insects and stuff. The cardiovascular system. There's no picture here, so let's go back. Doesn't have a picture of a heart. Well, anyway, let's talk about the cardiovascular system quick, because the circulation is the cardiovascular with the heart and blood, right? Well, I think the reason they didn't put the heart and lung hearts in here, the heart circulation, is because it's similar to mammals. A bird has a 4-chambered heart, but it's larger, and its jugular vein crosses and turns so that it can turn its head. So basically it has the same 4-chamber heart, only larger because it needs more oxygen. And then it's a jugular vein so that it crosses so it can turn its head almost clear around compared to us. We can't. And then the brachial and pectoral veins are very large, and it has an increased heart rate, of course, because the birds have very high metabolism. And the blood looks the same as mammals, right? Same kind of blood, but it contains nucleated red cells. So larger red cells with nucleuses in them. We don't have that. They have larger red cells with nucleus because it needs more oxygen. And the white blood cells are also more efficient, and they are bigger and to repair their wounds faster. So, it's pretty amazing, that a bird has better red cells, larger red cells for more oxygen, better than ours, and a bird has better white cells than we do to prevent diseases. Wow, that's pretty amazing. And then the heart rate being fast, and then of course the heart being bigger. That's the only difference between the circulation. A turkey's beats 93 beats per minute. A chicken 250 beats per minute. A little chickadee 500 beats per minute, but they can, if they're in a lot of in-flight and exercise, they can get up to 1,000 beats per minute. So that is pretty spectacular. So I'm going to go back to that one section that I left. This section. So you can read this. It's design in the living creation. Basically what it's telling you is how important it is for birds, are prolific by design, which means, God made these birds so that they could get rid of all the insects we have, or God made the insects so the birds can be fed, right? So Colorado beetles have, they produce 6 million per season. That's how many beetles. The female fly is 140,875 bushels of flies per season. And a plant louse which is an aphid, through 13 generations, they produce 100 female aphids. But as they can produce 10 sextillion aphids, in a season there, which would take aphids, you could put them 10 abreast, and if they're 10 abreast of 10 aphids abreast can go for 3 light years into space. That's a lot of aphids. So the purpose for creation is because these birds need to eat a lot of them, right? Let's go. Let's look at these birds here with their beaks and stuff. They eat a lot of insects. Let's go on. Back here. These birds here look at their bills and stuff. They can eat a lot of different insects. So a yellow-throat warbler can eat 89 aphids a minute. So in 40 minutes, they can eat 7,000 aphids in 40 minutes. A scarlet tanager can eat 600 moths or caterpillars in 18 minutes. A nighthawk, 500 mosquitoes in basically a short period of time. One feeding, 500 mosquitoes. A chickadee can eat 8 billion insects a year, plus their seeds. Most of these birds eat weed seeds. So a mourning dove eats 7,500 clover seeds in one feeding. That's a lot of clover seeds. But then we have the bob white, and the bob white eats 5,000 pigeon grass seeds and 1,000 ragweed seeds and 10,000 pigweed seeds. That's a lot of seeds. This is 570 tons of weeds it eats annual because it takes care of these seeds. And that's not even counting the insects. God created food as insects, and birds need a lot of insects to eat and a lot of seeds because they have to eat so much so that they can be active and fly and such. So that is the end of this section, and then we'll go on to the next section. So now you can go over the anatomy and know that you know the anatomy of the bird, right? You're the digestive system, onto the respiratory system here, going on with the circulatory system, and then onto, let's see, I think I covered everything here. Yep. we're going to go into the family life of birds and talk about some amazing things, especially migration. How does a bird know to migrate? God is specifically concerned with even a bird.